Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. Today's video is my review for Oh My Ghostess. Oh My Ghostess is about Nabong's Sun. She is a painfully shy and timid assistant chef at the Sun restaurant. She has a secret crush on the star chef who owns the restaurant, Kang Sun-woo, but she is too shy to act on it. Thanks to her grandmother, she has the ability to see ghosts, which is not an ability that she 100% loves. We then have Shin-sune. She is a ghost. She died without ever having experienced any romance in her short life. So she is determined to seduce as many men as possible with the goal of losing her virginity so that she can move on happily into the afterlife. When Sune meets Bongsun, she happens to find the perfect vessel to carry out her mission. Meanwhile, Sunwoo is nursing a broken heart, but he starts to notice the more bolder Bongsun. The question is, can Sune and Bongsun both get what they want in the end? Oh My Ghostess has an intriguing, if not creepy start, but I did find a little bit of the first episode a tiny bit boring. However, I was eager for things to really get started and for things to finally start happening. The show basically takes its time in the first episode to introduce the characters, set things up, throw the ghost lore at you, and the pace can best be described as steady. But to offset the steady pace, there are a lot of mystery elements brought in, like what happened to the ghost, how did she die, that kept you watching and kept you intrigued. Plus, it was hilariously funny and I did find myself snorting out loud a lot when I was watching it, and I was thoroughly entertained. Bongsun is quiet, she fades into the background, she's very timid, she's always apologising for things. I feel like her personality is partially from the fact that she's grown up being able to see ghosts. That would obviously be quite terrifying, and I would imagine that she's kind of quite quiet because, you know, the awkward moment when you start talking to someone who turns out to be a ghost, you know what I mean? But I do feel like her shyness and her quietness is a result of the fact that she can see ghosts more than anything. But her character really does develop and change a lot over the course of the series. I really liked how the ghost kind of brought her out of her shell, got her more confident, although, you know, it was a bit rude that she just possessed her without asking at first. Before I started watching the show, I kind of thought that she was going to be like a mentor to her and work with her, so I wasn't really expecting the whole forced possession thing. So yeah, it was a bit rude that the ghost just took over her a few times without asking and just, you know, wanted to sleep with random dudes. But still. But I really felt for Bongsun a lot, especially when she got her body back. She was understandably very traumatised and very terrified. And, you know, she's being harassed by the ghost still and she just wants the ghost to leave her alone. I really felt for her. I really empathised with her. But at the same time, I was rooting for her to get her confidence and to get her man. As for Sune, she is our ghost. I had an interesting relationship with Sune as we were watching, because as much as I empathised with her and felt for her and the fact that, you know, she died and she could see her family but they couldn't see her and she couldn't speak to them, and that she just wanted to move on into the afterlife and she didn't want to have to do the ceremony because she was scared, I empathised with all of that completely. I felt for her. But at the same time, I feel like she just, you know, took over Bongsun's body, and I feel like she just kind of took over her life with no thought as to the consequences, and she kind of went about screwing up a few things too. Plus she did some things I didn't entirely agree with, like the fact that she was doing it purely to sleep with someone, like she went into someone's body to sleep with someone against that person's will. That kind of had me a bit like, okay. And then there was the fact that the guy she chose and kept saying no, but she was really pushy. Yeah, at points it was funny, but at some points it was a bit like, he said no, back off bitch. So at some points, at least to me, she came across as quite selfish, and because of that I was really conflicted about her character, because I did like her at other points. I thought she was funny, she was entertaining, I felt for her, I got why she was trying to do it, but I also felt like she was selfish, and at some points she did kind of annoy me a little bit. But by the end she seemed to have grown up a little bit, she seemed to really care for Bongsun by the end, and I really liked the friendship that developed between the two of them, and that was more of what I had been envisioning happening in the series from the beginning. So basically, once they talked things out and started to work together, it was all good. As for Sunwoo, the first thing I'm going to say is he is the merman from Legend of the Blue Sea. When I started watching the first episode, I was like, you look really familiar. Why do you look familiar? Then it clicked. He is a bit of an arrogant arse, at least at the beginning anyway, but straight away in the first episode it shows you why he is like that, and so you understand him, so you can kind of overlook it and you understand it. But a lot of the time he's also kind of very funny with it. He can be quite arrogant, he can be quite cocky, he can be quite cold, but sometimes he kind of seems a little bit like pouty and sulky with it too. But I did actually really like him. He and Bong made for an interesting couple. They're quite different, but I really liked how he and the show in general handled mental health, because obviously he assumes that she is bipolar, as do the doctors, when she kind of changes and switches between two personalities that are quite drastically different. It was handled really nicely. I really liked how it was done. I haven't seen that topic handled before in a drama, and I was very impressed with it. Another relationship of his that I liked was his relationship with the sous chef, his bromance, if you can call it that. It was absolutely 100% hilarious, and I really liked how there he was for his sister and how he looked out for her. So basically, he's kind of arrogant, he's a bit cold, but he has a heart of gold really, and he's kind of a little squishy mess once you get past the coldness and the arrogance, if you ignore it. Squishy. I had a fun time trying to work out who the second male lead was in this drama. I think the second male lead was June. I think. Judging by the focus on him and the occasional close-ups you got at certain points, I'm assuming he was supposed to be the second male lead. Either that or there was no second male lead whatsoever. I mean, I didn't really get second male lead vibes from him. He kind of never really made a move. He seemed to be more of a friend to Bong, although he was the cause of some jealousy at some points, but I'm not sure if that's enough to qualify him as second male lead. He was cute though. He seemed to like Bong for who she was when she was her shy, timid self. They seemed to be really good friends. I like the friendship between the two of them. He was literally the only one that didn't seem overly annoyed by her timidness. And you know, he's the only one of the other chefs with a brain, and his disgusted, I'm surrounded by idiots face was a highlight of this show for me. He's basically a sweet, perfect little angel. I really enjoyed the support cast. They were brilliant. They were entertaining. Minsu, the sous chef, yeah, he was a bit cringy. Yeah, you wanted to smack him one, but ultimately he was entertaining. Plus, he worked really well with the rest of the cast and he provided some brilliant interactions with all of them. The other chefs in general, I did really love. They were like older brothers to Bong by the end, and I loved seeing her get closer to them and the relationship kind of form between all of them and the camaraderie, and I really loved their interactions. I thought they were hilarious, especially at the end when they had become a lot closer. Honestly, all of the other chefs are literally like gossiping old biddies, sitting there discussing, oh, is she and Chef dating? No, they can't be, blah, blah, blah. Minsu is hilariously oblivious to everything. One of my favourite episodes was when Bong and all of the other chefs went out and got drunk together. I actually cried with laughter at that episode. The only other character I want to comment on is the sister's husband, because I got creepy vibes from him straight from the beginning, and I couldn't work out if it was because I didn't like his character in Bride of Harbeck very much, and if I was kind of carrying that over to this. And then as the series progressed, I was 100% sure something was wrong with this guy. Acting from the actress playing Bong was completely amazing. I loved watching her performance. She basically played two characters and they were very different from each other, kind of at two extremes. Bong was really quiet, and Bong, possessed by Sune, was very loud and very kind of extroverted to Bong's introvert, and I thought it was very well done how she did it, and seeing her kind of snap between the two really driving home just how different the two personalities were and how brilliant the acting was. As for Son Woo's acting, he seemed like such a natural in the role. I would never have guessed that he wasn't actually a chef from the way he was cutting things up, wokking things, frying, panning things, cooking. Yeah, you can tell I don't really cook much. The acting from Sune was also very well done. She could do emotional as well as the comedy, and there were some really heartbreaking scenes with her that really got me. and she made me feel for her and empathise with her when she wasn't annoying me at points. Plus, all of the supporting cast did a really brilliant job too. They did comedy brilliantly too, but obviously they had to display a certain level of chef skills as well, and I think the entire cast did a brilliant job bringing the characters and this drama to life. The romance kind of builds and develops quite slowly. I liked the pace to it. It was very well matched with the series, so at no point did it ever feel rushed to kind of get it completed before the end. I did like watching it unfold, but I was mildly concerned as to whether he was in love with Bong or whether he was in love with Sune or whether he was in love with both of them. But I felt like that made for a more interesting conflict to be overcome rather than the usual. I also really loved how he went from being cold with asshole tendencies to so freaking cute. I literally nearly choked the first time because I was not expecting that level of cuteness. The other thing that kind of concerned me about the romance was that the ghost was in her body a lot of the time and Bong wasn't really getting to experience these experiences, and I couldn't work out how the romance was gonna work once the ghost had gone, because, you know, Bong hadn't had any of these experiences with him and she doesn't really remember what the ghost did when the ghost was in her body. So it was an interesting conflict, different from the usual. Yeah, there was still a couple of misunderstandings, but the main conflict was the ghost possessing her and the kind of relationship he's been having with both of them. It was resolved really nicely, and I like the fact that it didn't drag on for too long. The conflict was kind of basically resolved by the last 2 episodes, so the romance was locked down for the final 2 episodes, which meant that we could focus on the murder and sorting Sune out. The ghost lore was really interesting. I was really fascinated by the fact that Sune didn't remember how she died, and the flashbacks for it added a really nice mystery element as you kind of try to put the pieces together. I was also intrigued by the fact that Bong didn't remember anything that happened when Sune possessed her, because I kind of assumed that she would be like a little passenger riding along, like, you know, she could see what was happening, she was there, but she just wasn't the one in control. The other interesting aspect of the ghost lore was the whole, you have 3 years after you die to move on to heaven or you become an evil spirit. There were a few other things that I found really interesting about it, like the funeral feasts and the bell necklace she wears. I was fascinated by all of that. I was kind of hoping we get to see some more of that kind of thing, but I think, you know, in order to tell the story, we did get to see what we needed to see. I liked the mix of the comedic with the creepy. Some of the ghosts, my god, some of them, the poltergeists or whatever they are, just literally pop up out of nowhere, and I actually genuinely jumped a few times. It probably didn't help that I was watching some episodes at like 2 o'clock in the morning in the dark. Yes, there are some slow moments. Yes, the pace is quite steady. It's not action every minute, but it makes full use of the run of episodes it has, so everything is told and built up really well without there being any rush whatsoever. It also meant that they could bring in other elements like the cooking. They got to focus on that a nice amount. They got to focus on Bong overcoming her timidness. We got to focus on the ghost and her story. We got to focus on the chef's mum and her budding friendship with the shaman, but you got to focus on a few other things that added to the show and kind of helped bring it to life and added some interesting and funny moments to keep you interested and to keep you entertained. That being said, this show isn't completely devoid of action, because for the last 2 episodes we get a nice amount of action, because obviously they save the big reveal until the end, and that is when we kind of start to fully solve the mystery of what happened to Sune. It all gets kind of very CSI Criminal Minds as they kind of work to uncover what happened to her and who killed her and how she died, as well as who was responsible for the hit and run on Chef's sister. I really liked how everything was kind of connected and linked together very well. I liked how there were kind of little clues throughout, but it built up more and more and more until you could put it together. As for the ending of the show, I really liked how it ended. It was so emotional, yet so satisfying, and who knew that the cold, arrogant chef was a clingy little crybaby. Oh My Ghostess is definitely an enjoyable series. It's definitely great to watch at Halloween, let alone any other time of the year. It's a really brilliant mix of elements, the cooking, the mystery, the murder. I loved all of it. I really liked how the pace was steady, it wasn't rushed, it brought in all of these different things to add to the enjoyment of the series and really flesh it out. I hope you guys enjoyed my review for Oh My Ghostess. Let me know down below what you thought of the show if you've watched it. I will link all of my social media down below so you can check in with me on Twitter and on Instagram, and I'll see you guys next video.